It's our job to let people know this is the actual condition of what it is. If you've got a 20 or 30-year-old system, there's a lot of stuff probably not right with it. I'm not just, but I got a problem with dreaming up stuff that's not right. These AC guys, sales guys come in and go, oh, you need another return over here. Yeah, you need more return. I'm like, you have no idea what kind of airflow this thing has. We have a $5,000 flow hood. So basically, I got into the air conditioning business. I learned it from my father-in-law, and he's a great technician. I actually helped him kind of set up his own business. He had a partner at one time, and he ended up splitting from his partner, and I helped him kind of go out on his own because I had run businesses before that. So my background is race car business. So I'd done that, been one of the best in the world for 15-something years of my life. So when I was 20 years old, we built the fastest Mustang in the world.
Whoa, the fastest Mustang in the world.
Fastest Mustang
How did
in the
you
world.
become that guy?
They told me I couldn't do it, so I just figured out a way to do it. So what happened is I went to work for a company that I was into cars, but I wasn't into it like really hardcore. So I'd change carburetors and manifolds and, you know, tweak. My dad and I had hot rods.
Yeah.
So I built 2 little hot rods before I could drive them. But it was just like tweaking little stuff, carburetors, bolt-on stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there was a company up the street from me that was specialized in Ford Mustangs. And my dad used to have Shelbys. So like 69 GT350 Shelby. So we always went to, they had a Shelby American Automobile Club. SAC was a Shelby club that everybody went to. Like, it was like, it's all over the country. But that's what I knew about cars. So it was kind of, that was the hot rod, but the real hot rods from the 60s. Until we go to an event and we start seeing these late model Mustangs, which are like mid-1980s, late 87 Mustang was the first fuel injector, or 86 Mustang was first fuel injected. I got into it at about 88, 89 is kind of where I got into the Mustang. So that was when the Mustang Revolution 5-liter with the fuel injection was taken off. I went to work for a guy that built fast Mustangs. And I said, hey, I'll just help you around the shop because I know a little bit about it. I lasted there about 3 months. I went to another shop, was right up the street, and they were known for turbocharging and fuel injection is what their thing was. It was called CarTech. And they were in Motor Trend and Car and Driver. They did all these top speed events with their cars. So they were real well known in the turbo crowd. Yeah. But nobody really was big on turbos at that time. Behind us there is my black Mustang up on the wall. That was that was my personal Mustang. Oh, wow. I put a turbocharger on my own time while I was worked at this other company. I built my own turbo system, which was headers and the manifolds and everything. And I wanted to go drag racing, and that company had never done that. Wow. They didn't really, they did like top end, like high speed stuff, you know, road racing and all that. That's what they were in.
I'll move this over here a little bit. That we get. This is so good what you're sharing. So from there, I basically 3 days after I got my car running with the turbocharger that I built after hours, working on basically on my own car. Yeah. I go to an event in Houston. I drive it all the way to Houston, so that's 3 hours, 3.5, 4 hours away. Yeah. And I beat every guy in the class with this car that I just got running like 2 days ago. It's a street car with it had emissions. It was totally stock with a turbo on it. I go down and I beat every guy in the class, and the owner of this other company that I went to work for later had to enter his full-blown race car. It was a turbocharged Mustang. So there's 2 turbocharged Mustangs in the finals, but one's a full-blown race car and one's literally this kid that drives it on the street. Like I just got it running. He then starts calling me and trying to hire me. So I worked at this CarTech for about 9 months. In the process of that, I had a guy come in and want to partner with me and set me up in a shop. But when I did that, he was always like, hey, I know you think a little different. You think outside the box. So he goes, if you ever get a better offer, he goes, hey, we got our little hobby shop here. But he goes, I would like you, if you get a better offer, he says, you're destined to do bigger things than this. I want you to take it. So the guy that I beat in Houston had his own race car shop.
So he starts calling me. He's like, hey, I really would like you to come work for me. And I'm like, hey, I live in Dallas. I live with my parents. I don't have any expenses. You know, I'm like, literally 5 minutes away from where I work, where I live. He offered me so much money. He kept after me. I said, you can't afford to hire me. But I was making $8 or $10. I was making $7 or $8 an hour. And this was 1989, 1990. Way not making much compared to most of the guys in the business. But I offered to come in and sweep the floor for 2 weeks. I said, if you don't think I'm the best floor sweeper ever, then you don't owe me a dime. You're going to know that when I get in here, though, I'm going to figure stuff out. They had a full fabrication shop and everything. Within 9 months at Cartech, I was like their head research and development guy. I was an aluminum welder and steel welder in a fabrication shop. And they were actually offered me to start traveling to go. They wanted me to start an offshore boat division because we had built some boat motors with turbos. This was way before it got really big and popular, though. And so I was only there 9 months and I learned all that. So I go to this other guy's shop, we partnered, and I get an offer from the guy in Houston. Within 3 months of me going to work down there in Houston, because he says, I want you to build me the fastest Mustang in the world. And he knew I could do it. He was an engineer by trade. That's what he was. And so he saw what I did on my personal Mustang and what I did for these other customers' cars. And actually, the first weekend that I had my car running, it had a magazine article that was done in a national magazine because the guy couldn't believe how fast it was. It was like, this is a full-blown street car. I can't believe how fast this thing is. So it hits a magazine. It's like all of a sudden it starts dominoing. So the guy in Houston hires me, and the other guy's like, man, dude, go for it, man. This, hey, yeah, we got a little shop together, but he goes, hey, this is that big break I'm talking about. In 3 months, I went to work down there, and he's like, my job was to build, basically fabricate the car and build. We bought a chassis that was already a race car, but I built all the turbo systems and the intercoolers and everything to it to make it do what it needed to do. And in 3 months, we had the fastest Mustang in the world. It was the first 8-second pass in a quarter mile, any Mustang, drag race, 5-liter Mustang. And we were dealing with Don Walsh, who worked directly with Ford Motor Racing, like Ford Motorsports, the actual racing division. Guys that worked with Jack Roush, like their racing division. Brian Wolf was an engineer for Ford, and he's still doing it to this day. There's a lot of these guys that have passed away now. But I was dealing with these high-end engineers and for the factory. That's what we were competing with. And they laughed at us because we're some rednecks from Texas that we don't know nothing. And nobody drag races turbos. You can't make a fast car. Everybody's scared of us. In 1990, 91, 92, we were dominated, no matter where you went. So all the streetcar shootout stuff, we were at the very first hot rod streetcar shootout in Memphis. We had the heaviest car there, the smallest motor, but because it was turbocharged, everybody was trying to get us outlawed because nobody had a turbocharged car. They had nitrous cars, blower cars, they had everything but turbo. So they wanted to outlaw us. And so I always fought, I was always the underdog in that. Nowadays, if you're gonna go to any of these races that are big, bad street cars anywhere, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 horsepower street cars. They're all turboed and fuel injected now. So in the last 30 years, that technology finally caught up. I got out of it though in 2005 because it's real economy dependent. It goes up and down. And what I learned was everybody used to talk about, well, do what you love and you'll make a great business out of it and you'll make great money at it. Well, I was the best in the world. We'd actually been featured in 60 different national magazines. I wrote articles, technical articles for the magazines. So I was known all over the world. I'm like, if you can be that guy and you cannot maintain a profitable business because we were so far ahead of everybody, we were 10 or 15 years ahead of where the technology was. We were developing the technology way before anybody could really buy it or afford it. So we were doing very few select cars, but nobody was really throwing a bunch of money like they do nowadays at it. So we were spending a lot of time doing it, but we weren't making any money. You had the dot-coms in 2000 that went. You had day trading that went. We were building cars for people all over the place. Overnight goes away. The housing in 2008, when the economy tanks, guess what? The race car gets put for sale and it gets sold. Or the wife, the kid's got to go to college now. So here's the race car and the race operation. The husband's got to sell it off because the kid's got to go to college. Yeah. So overnight, we lose like maybe one of our prime advertising platforms. So after doing it for 15 years, I just said, you know what? This is not the right business to be into. So it's like, if I can be as good as I can be, and we would actually dream up stuff and we would fabricate it. We had a full fabrication shop, welding, machining. And that's what made us, that's why we did so good on our success. Because what we did is, what everybody else would hit the wall, everybody else gets to the same spot and stops. And what I did is I'd figure out the next step you had to go, and we'd build whatever it took to go that next step. That's why nobody could keep up with us. Mm-hmm. So, and then if you're chasing us in the racing business, it's like anything. If you're chasing somebody, you can never keep, it's hard to get caught up because that guy's 10 steps ahead of you. Yeah. 2005, I'd had enough. I'm like, man, it basically made me go bankrupt. I mean, it was just like, it was all work. I worked 24/7. I work a lot anyways. So I basically said, you know what? This is not for me. I got into aircraft detailing, private aircraft detailing. I got into motorcycle repo. I made a ton of money doing that, but it was more like bank repos, like, so there were voluntary repossessions, right? But still people don't want to give them up. I did that for a while. I did car detailing. So I bounced around after I got out, and I had a shop full of equipment. I just shut my race car shop down and started selling everything off. My father-in-law finally decides, hey, you know what? Let me take a chance on hiring Richard. I think he was more scared about that I'd take the business away, because I actually helped him start his AC business. Because he didn't know the computers, he didn't know how to run QuickBooks and invoicing and do all that. And I actually helped him get his computers running and do QuickBooks. Because I've been on QuickBooks since it was DOS. Yeah. So I've been running that since the late 80s. This was 2005 or so. So I helped him branch off from his partner. And then after that, a little bit after that, then I basically had an opportunity to go to work with him.
His last name is Fox?
Nope. His last name is Parnell. So that's my father-in-law. So Fox, so when I got to work for him, it was literally him, my father-in-law, and me. I worked for him for 8 years. I was subcontract the entire 8 years. I bought my own gas. I bought parts for the business. I got reimbursed for it. I had to pay all my own taxes. So everybody I knew was that mom and pop. Mm-hmm. It was like my father-in-law, and everybody he knows is all these little mom and pop 2 or 3 people, businesses, because that's how they have it. And so Fox, though, was one of our commercial jobs. My father and I did a bunch of training for Lochinvar. Lochinvar is a boiler manufacturer. They got a contract to basically retrofit all the school districts, all the schools in Texas. Lochinvar did. Mm-hmm. So they were retrofitting a bunch of these boilers at all these campuses, at all these schools. And we were tied in with one of the main reps that was in charge of all that. Mm. We knew him. So we had done a bunch of air conditioning work at his place, and that's why he knew us. So he would call us out, and he'd send us to training for all Lochinvar stuff. So Lochinvar would call us directly. And so, like, they actually give people my number. Mm-hmm. Like, you would call Lochinvar, and they'd say, oh, call Richard over at Fox, because they knew we would actually go out of state looking at stuff for the actual factory themselves when they couldn't figure out stuff. So that's how I met Fox. So it's Fred Fox, and he was out of Grapevine, and he did Grapevine, Euless, Bedford area. He was exclusively residential, and he just did side jobs basically. Because what he did is he worked for Parker College, is out here off of Walnut Hill. North Dallas is the biggest. They're a chiropractic college, but they do massage therapy and sports medicine. I know that. It is the biggest. I think it's the largest privately owned, or debt-free, they said, is what it was. Because I knew the presidents at one time. I did their homes and stuff too. That's where we did a bunch of work at Parker because they would sub out like the boiler work because Fred was on site, their HVAC guy, that Fred Fox was, but he'd sub out the boiler stuff because he didn't know anything about it. So for years, we'd been maintaining a lot of their stuff. So that's how me and Fred knew each other. I'd run into Fred at the parts warehouse, and he's in his 80s now. So he was already old. I've had this thing. I bought it from Fred in 2013. So I took it over. He had it in about early 2000s when he started. But he was just residential, and he'd been working for Parker. So what he would do is he could go do residential. If you get a service call, he just like, okay, I leave, because he was kind of the on-site maintenance guy, like supervisor. Well, he had helpers that could do maintenance, and he just happened to be in the AC. What he would do is he would then go run service calls. Like when they get a call, he's like, okay, I got to go run a service call, and he'd take off, and he'd go run his AC calls. And then he would use like subcontractors to do installs. So he did that. But it was Grapevine, Euless, Bedford. So it's kind of way west side of town, west of Dallas. He'd done that for quite a while. And so I'd run into him at parts stores, and I'm like, Fred, I go, he's over buying a compressor. He goes, yeah, I got to get up on this ladder, and this unit's hanging off the side of the building and everything, and I got to figure out how to get that compressor up there. And I'm looking at Fred, and he's a lot older than I am by 20-something years probably, 20 or 30. So almost probably 30 years older. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, Fred, what are you doing this? And I'm thinking, I'm like, you need to retire. And he'd laugh, and because he's one of these old guys, he'd just keep going. Yeah. And he'd go, look, if I could trust somebody to take over my clients, I'd make him a smoking deal on the business. Because he goes, yeah, I would love to get out. He says, but I don't trust anybody with my customers. And I just kind of would laugh because I worked for my father-in-law, and he knew it. Yeah. I said, well, I happen to know a guy who might be interested, but I go, I just don't know if the deal would ever work out because it might go bad a bunch of different ways. Because I figured my father-in-law was not going to take this very well when I came up with it. And he didn't. So me and Fred, for a year and a half, we'd kind of bounced it back and forth about what would we do and what kind of money we were talking about. And it was once in a lifetime deal. And what happened is my father-in-law, his son, years before that, used to work with him with his partner. And his ex-partner fired his son. So his son worked for another AC company for years. And he made probably triple of what I made because my father-in-law barely could keep me busy for 40 hours a week. His son's over there working side jobs and doing everything in another company, cranking out overtime, making triple what I'm making. So one day he comes in, he goes, oh, by the way, Jason, which is his son, he's going to come work for us next month. So all these years, so I'm now put in 8 years with my father-in-law. And I'm still subcontract. I'm not even on payroll.
Yeah, but it's nepotism. What are you going to do?
Right. And I tried to go to him and said, look, we need to expand this. I could barely work 40 hours a week. And actually during the winter, I couldn't even get 40 hours unless I dug it up on my own. So here I am trying to expand the business, help him, but he doesn't want to do it. And then like if I would bring in a job, he'd basically just keep putting it to the back of the line. So like he would take care of all his customers, and then I have people call me and say, hey, Richard, we know you. You're an AC guy. We want you to do our stuff. They don't know my father-in-law. They knew me.
Right. It was your reputation.
Yes. And I didn't, and even our commercial customers too, they asked me like, well, if we give your father-in-law this job, don't you get a commission off of it since you're the contact? I go, no. Because what do you get out of it? I go, well, if you don't hire me, I probably don't have work to do and I won't be able to make a paycheck. He said, but if you do hire me or hire my father-in-law, then I'll have work to do because I'm probably the one that's going to do it anyways. So then that's how I make money. Yeah. So no commission.
You're just an hourly employee.
Not even an employee. I'm a subcontractor. I got to pay my own taxes and everything.
That's true, yeah.
So this is kind of the history that I've seen and the people I know. And I always saw a business like that. And I'm like, I don't want to run a business like that. I'm like, that's not fair to the clients. That's not fair to the employees. It's like, you can't do a business like that. So I always, when I worked the deal out with Fred, what happened is I went to my father-in-law. I says, hey, since Jason's now going to come work for you.
Right.
And now it's the three of us.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough work for the two of us, let alone the one. How about we try to combine here? So my father-in-law was commercial, and he was in North Dallas, and he was a Carrier dealer. Fred was a Train dealer, and he was to the west side of town. So not even the same. They're not even overlapping territories.
Right. Right.
So I says, hey, now we have a Train dealership. You got a Carrier, and you're in commercial. Now I got residential, 200 customers. I says, let's figure out a way to work this. I'll buy the van from you. I'll give you the van to Jason, your son. I'll go buy me a new van or a van. I says, but I want to start doing stuff on the side, or I want to start marketing I'll give you 40 hours. I go, I'm not even tired of 40 hours. Because I work 100 hours a week. I'm like, so I want the nights or the weekends and the after hours. I want to do that on my own. I'll give you a cut of it. I said, depending on how we do it, I said, I got to hire you, then I'll pay you so much. And so I had the same deal worked out. I have a bunch of friends of mine. We worked out a deal. And they're like, hey, we'll charge $35 an hour if you need our help, we'll charge you $35 an hour for it. And if you need us, it was like the same way, either way.
Both ways.
I'll send your guys for $35 an hour, and you can hire my guys for $35 an hour. And we had worked that deal out. I had that deal with multiple guys I know, other friends of mine. But my father-in-law didn't like that at all. He basically fired me on the spot. And then he turned around and lied to my wife, my mother-in-law, and all the family, and said I was stealing customers from him, and I was doing side jobs, and that's the reason he fired me. And I had never done that before, because that's a pet peeve of mine, even back into the race car business. You remember in the race car stuff, I always made sure guys said, look, you come to work for me during the day, you go home, you live your life, do whatever you want. I go, but you're not going to be working on cars on the side, because everybody, I said, you can send them through the shop, and that's how you earn your paycheck. Same thing with the air conditioning thing. I'd always been like that. I'm like, I will not do side jobs. For 1 month, at the end of 8 years of working for my father-in-law, Fred started sending me customers, because I says, hey, before we do this deal, I want to make sure that you got the right customer that I want to have, and I want to make sure that they're happy with the work I'm doing for them, because if it's not going to work out, let's not do the deal. Right. He was just ready to throw his hands up and walk away from it. Every customer that I went out and did jobs on calls Fred and tells him, like, man, dude, Richard, he treats us just like he's known us for the entire time we've ever known you. He does exactly the way you do it. He's honest. He's a hard worker. He shows up and does what he says. And that, you just don't find that out there is the problem. And people recognize that. Unfortunately, 200 people, word of mouth and advertising, though, just you can't grow, like no advertising. So just word of mouth, while we grew to 900 or 1,200 customers, like consistent customers, by word of mouth. The problem is these guys are advertising and they're bringing in thousands of customers a month. That's how they're getting all their Google reviews. I get a Google review. I've had a customer for 20 years. That only review's worth one review. Yeah. If I go out every week, I can't get 4 reviews from that customer a week. So it actually penalizes me for having repeat customers. When the new guy, all he does is advertise, he shows up, sells them a new system the very first time, and gets a Google review. The dude's hit the lottery. But I'm too busy servicing customers that we've had stuff fixed, repaired, replaced. It's like, and we're not picking up new customers. So really, that's when that shift kind of occurred. It's like, well, now that I know I'm in the AC business, it's a rough business. And after COVID, we were like, cha-ching. We're like, home services is where you want to be. All my race car guys, I have a team, one owner that had 17 different cars, and we're talking multi-million-dollar operations per vehicle, gone. Total operation had to go, basically went out of business. His son is the only guy that has a car now because they get sponsorship for that one car, and they struggle with that one. He went from 17 to 1. And actually, they didn't have sponsorship for a couple years after COVID because they shut down all the tracks and stuff. So that's really when the kind of the light went off in my head. The problem is I was kind of behind the curve because I had the mom and pop deal. I was just used to, everybody I know was 1, 2, 3. I had more trucks than anybody. I had 3 trucks. Then I have a shop that's 3,500 square foot shop to actually put stuff and work out of. So I got training rooms, and I want to have a podcast room, and I got break rooms. I'm trying to build it. But the problem is after COVID, I was downsizing right before COVID hit because I was doing a bunch of commercial and I had a bunch of guys and they were just pulling money out of my pocket faster than I could bring it in. I wasn't pricing my stuff right. I wasn't in the residential like I should have been. I was more commercial. We were dealing with property managers and we're dealing with 5 different people that you got too many people making a decision on who hires who. And they're really looking for the cheapest guy. So they no longer, quality doesn't matter. They say they want quality, but they want the cheapest price. And there's always somebody out there that's hungry. I'm not saying they do a bad job. They just don't understand what it takes to price it right. A year ago, it was a year like October, it was about a year and a half ago, I started hiring business coaches. So I hired multiple business coaches. So start planning kind of a revamp of how I wanted the business to do. So now I started learning what the numbers should be. I started seeing how the guys were advertising. I started doing this. The only problem is we don't have deep pockets. And it's like, a lot of these guys got some big finance guys, like they're
PE's big in AC and plumbing.
Yeah. So, like you got big PE companies or you have right around the corner here, you got this company, it's over 100 years old. Now they've been bankrupt a bunch of times. And there was one right up the street, across the street from our race car shop that in 2016 or 17, they went bankrupt. And I heard they owed Carrier over $40 million in equipment.
Wow.
And so at a time when I was trying to get more credit line with Carrier had froze all their equipment lines and said, we're not increasing anybody's credit lines. And I was like, why can't you do that? Well, we had one of our big vendors, customers, just went bankrupt and cost us over $40 million. We just don't have that. We just can't take the risk. So what they did is, because of that customer that had been around for 100 years, got bought out, went bankrupt, and restructured. Now it hurts the little guys. Because now I'm like, hey, I'm trying to buy more. Now, I still got, $100,000 credit lines with them, but it's like, hey, it's not, but we would buy that much in a month. So there was some times where we were actually having to prepay all the equipment. So it's like, here you're trying to expand and you got some of these big guys out there that have been around and they're actually messing up, they're dirtying up the pond. And it's like, and then everybody after COVID, this last year or so, these people are coming in from all over the country. They're going, oh, Dallas is the place to be. I'm born and raised in Dallas. I'm like, and I've traveled the country and been different places and lived different places for a little bit. I love Dallas. This is my home. So I care about the economy here. I care about building a lifestyle and a career and a life for other people. When we do an air conditioner for somebody, we have problems because it's usually a manufacturer's issue or warranty issues. It's a mechanical thing. It's going to fail. You're going to have issues. But it very rarely has anything to do with how we installed it. And we're proud of that. And every time we turn around, like we have other companies come behind us and look at what the work we do, and they just kind of go, wow. They're like, y'all do really good work. I'm like, yeah, every job we do it. And I will refuse to cut corners on a job. I would rather lose money, and that's probably my biggest weakness. I would rather lose money to make sure a job gets done right, or I will spend more time doing it knowing it's not as profitable because I'm spending too much time doing it, but I'm not walking away from a job unless it is done the right way. And that doesn't mean it has to be expensive.
Right.
That just means for what it is and for what that customer wants, there are some things we just don't cut corners on. And we want it done right because in the long run, we know it's going to benefit them in the long run. We know they're going to save money. We know they're going to be happier with the product. But we have to sell that value to them. And not always can you sell it to them. They sometimes without the pictures and the reports or these videos like we're trying to get better at doing, they don't know the difference because everybody says they do it.
But if you do it right, you're the only one that can really offer the free repairs. Because if they don't do it right, you have to come back and fix it and charge more.
Right. Right.
And you've been doing that a long time.
And we've been doing that a long time. Yeah. And so we had one of our competitors basically they started advertising free minor repairs. I'm like, man, I don't know why I haven't been advertising that forever, because we've been doing it for decades. I mean, we go out to people's houses and we go out and it's a minor repair and they're customers that we've had.
Yeah.
We're constantly doing free stuff for them. And hey, we fix this. By the way, the other day we had a big company that's a big AC company got into plumbing. We go and fix a carbon monoxide big old leak that they installed the flue pipe incorrectly on a water heater that's sitting next to the air conditioner now we're working on. And here their sticker is on the water heater. And I'm like, you literally set that, put a couple lines on it and can't put the vent pipe in right and could kill somebody. And we're sitting there going, looking at this like, hey, if that's so simple and you can't do it right. And the AC side, that's the other crack that kind of cracks me. I'm not saying that the plumbers and electricians aren't hard workers and it's not a skilled job. But when you're an AC guy, we're doing electrical, we're doing gas work, we're doing sheet metal work, we're welding, we're dealing with high pressure refrigerants and flammable refrigerants. Our job, and we're troubleshooting, and we're dealing with cranes, and we're dealing with all this other stuff and tight compartments, in closed spaces. Not that they don't do it either, but we tend to it is a lot harder to manage an AC company. So the way we looked at it is we would like to add electrical and plumbing, roofing and stuff like that later on. But I think once we just need to get the AC side of it down working a lot better. And the problem is with these guys, they're throwing so much money. Google Ads was paying out so good.
Yeah.
I mean, but they were paying $700 per click.
That's insane.
They were insane. But if they come out and sell you a $25,000 system,
it could be worth it.
And they hire some subcontractor that just comes in and slams it in and out, they can do it. And we just didn't have the deep pockets that we could do that. So we were looking around and then we'd go to hire a marketing company. We're like, hey, these guys will work with us. And then they find out, oh, we're working with another company right there in Forney or in Dallas. We can't help you. So we're working on the rebranding with Dan Antonelli. So we've already started that process a year and a half ago. Okay. Yeah. So it's actually he's been waiting on us. Okay. Because we've been formulating how we want to take this. We've been trying to kind of pull back on our commercial because we cannot predict.
Less profitable.
Yeah, it's just less profitable. I'm not saying you can't make money at it, but this was a deal that we had the other day. We know the property owners, and I go, look, y'all got a budget for doing a unit for this customer. The customer went out and got a bid from two companies. They said it was $21,000 due from one company. It was $23,000 from another company. I come back and I asked the property manager, I says, what do you have in the budget for doing this? Because this is a tenant that's still going to be there. They've kind of figured in a budget of what they're going to have 3 more years in their lease. Mm-hmm. I says, what kind of budget do you need to be on to make this deal happen? She tells me, she says, well, we've been doing jobs just like this for about the $18,000 range. I go, okay, let me figure out what I can do for you. And we came in at 16.9 or something like that. So we give her a proposal. We don't hear nothing. So we get this proposal and they're trying to get it by the end of the year because it's change out on refrigerant and all this other stuff. I don't hear nothing. I follow back up. She kind of blows me off, so she don't tell me anything. This one we've been doing for 10, 12 years. Actually, no, excuse me. I've been working for almost 20 years now. Some of it was under my father-in-law's company. And then everything. Then the minute I started my own deal, she brought all her stuff to me. So I don't hear from her. And she comes back to me. I says, hey, are you going to do this deal? Because I says, I know what their quotes were. Right. You kind of told me what that budget needed to be. I got you in below that. So I think we should be competitive. Well, I got 2 other bids. One's, it was like 11 something and one was 11.2 and the other was 11.8 or something. I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. I asked you this question before. This is before she got other bids. Mm-hmm. And she's nice enough that she lets us know. She says, hey. Right. And I always tell them, we've been working with them for a long time, and we're just like, hey, let us know if this is a particular deal where we need to get more competitive.
Right.
We'll work on the numbers for you, but it's not our normal thing. I'm just like, hey,
Right.
I don't normally want to do this on all this stuff. So here they got a $23,000 bid, a $21,000. She tells us the budget's probably about 18. We bid it at 17, and then comes back with 2 bids in the $11,000 range. Guys I've never heard of. And on these are commercial properties. You have to have bigger insurance coverage because she requires, like, licensing for A licensing in Texas, you require $300,000 liability. We have to carry $2 million per job. It's $3 million total jobs basically for the year is to get to have that license. So she requires 10 times or whatever that is. So we have to have all this extra stuff and jump through all these extra hoops for them. We don't have to do that for most of our people, but the commercial is a different story. So we revised the quote, basically strip everything off, because we try to do it with economizers and hail guards and electrical disconnects. We try to do it the right way the once. They don't have to mess with it for another 15 years. These other companies will do it, and they want you to buy a new unit in the next 5 years because they're going to sell you 3 units. So they might beat us on price on a stripped down unit, but they always know that when we do a unit for them, that tenant's going to be gone, but they don't have to replace that unit again for a long time. That's the reason they'll use us. But they've got new owners and new management in there, and they're all looking at the bottom line dollar. They do not see the value of what we provide. The previous managers did, but now they don't have the say that they used to. So now they're starting to price shop everybody.
But they don't understand that's not apples to apples.
It is not, but on paper it looks the same. It looks the same, or if not better. It's a cheaper price. When they get the unit down, when they actually compare apples, it is not an apples to apples comparison. They think it is, though. And
that's
I
where
lose
the
the
education
jobs.
comes in. Otherwise, they'll just go with the cheapest one.
Exactly, but the problem is when you're dealing with people that it's not their stuff.
But you have this thing where you're detailing what's going on and the other stuff you're doing right versus cutting corners.
I know, but that's the problem with commercial.
Right.
Residential, when you own the home, and that's where I kind of had to make my shift. We probably used to do 80% commercial, or probably 90% commercial and 10% residential. When I go into a residential house, though, and I can go over this, and I'm sitting down with the owners of the house, even if they're going to sell it tomorrow, the value is in. I had one that sold, they had 10 offers the next day once we put a new system in. I go, if you do not spend this money, this will probably sit on the market for a couple months or 2 or 3 months. You put a new air conditioner in, you're now different than every house on the street trying to sell. We charged them $14,000 for a system. I said, put $20,000 in your selling price. Every offer they got was above what they start asking for. They actually made money on it. And they go, that new air conditioner is what sold the house. Because the customer or the new buyer knew, I don't have to mess with this for a long time. And we even tell them, say, hey, it's new like this. You buy it and use us to do it. We'll cover the warranty and everything for you. So we can typically do 3 years just out of our pocket. But usually you'll get 10-year warranty on it. But on commercial, the warranties drop to like a 1-year warranty.
Yeah.
Because it's commercial. So it's like you don't have the same. You have Daikin, which will offer a 5-year warranty on all their stuff. Except for in the first year, it's already died. I mean, we're replacing units that they're a year old. So I'm like, what good's a warranty? I don't care if it's a lifetime warranty. If you actually have to use it all the time.
Well, I imagine here in Dallas, when it goes above 100 in the summer, that's a lot of work on the unit.
Yeah, it is. And that's where, when you figure, like you do your manual J's and all that, you do your heat loads, that's also designed for 80 degree set point on the inside at 50% humidity and 95 degrees outside at 50% humidity. Well, it's not 105 degrees outside and 90% humidity. And if you want to keep it at 70, that's a whole different story. So there's where those manual J's, it's like you're required to do them and to get a calculation on it. But you miss one little thing in that calculation, it throws the whole number off. I pay a certified company to do our calculations for us because that's what they do. I don't want to get anybody messing it up. One house that we did, they gave us 3 different size units because they did the bare minimum based on we had a barndominium that we did for somebody, and they figured all the insulation, all the windows and everything, they figured it to exactly what it should have been, but they did not figure in any outside air coming in, which you have to have. They did not figure in exhaust from the bathrooms. They did not figure in the exhaust from the cooking, and they had a fireplace. So their load came in at 3 tons on the first calculation that they did. Their second calculation, when I gave them the extra air that you needed for makeup, they came back with a 5-ton unit, and we went back with a 4-ton, which we thought that was about where we needed to be anyways, and it was over 3,000 square feet. Well, we figured, but based on experience, even though we have to do that load calculation to make it the way you're supposed to do it, it's so subjective. That's where the experience comes in and goes, look, we had 4 zones in that house. We knew we were going to be open and closing zones. We didn't need the full capacity. So we had it figured out, and we're like, 4 tons is more than enough for that house. And they love it. But here, even though if you don't have that experience and you're new to the game, and maybe you know the code because you read the book, or the inspector caught up to you and told you to do it different, or you do the manual J, you think that's right, and a customer, you put in a new system for a customer and fire that thing up, and it's during the middle of the summer and it don't cool, customer's upset. So there's where you got to go into questions with, we analyze every customer and every job to make sure that, hey, if you're keeping it 78 or 80 degrees, it's not going to have to struggle. Some of these people want it at 68 or 70 degrees in their house when it's 110 out. And we have a humidity control issues around here. So like if you're in Phoenix, all you care about is dropping the temperature. You don't care about humidity. Down here, we'll get mold growing on stuff. I mean, it gets toxic. So even a lot of the insurance companies pulled out of the state because we had so much mold claims a while back. So there's where that experience comes in, and somebody that is not willing to cut corners just for the sake of cost. With the residential customer, and the guys go back and they say, well, you didn't have to do this stuff 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The system lasted for 30 years. There were low pressure systems that were built with heavy duty components. The metal was thicker. People cared about building it the right way, but they ran so low pressures. It didn't matter what the airflow was. It didn't matter the thing just pumped and it cooled. Nowadays with this equipment, we have apps that we got to log in to diagnose stuff. I got geothermal stuff that I can look at on the internet. It tells me how much wattage is the blower running, how much the water pumps are running, how much the compressor is running, and it costs $25 a month to run the system. They're $50,000 systems, but they'll last for 40 years. But it will save you so much money, but not a lot of people can do that. So, and we're actually certified with the best in the country, like water furnace is the gold standard for geothermal. And we had to do a 3-week training just with water furnace, and I have a license with water furnace that authorizes me to service a unit. If I'm not the one working on it, they won't talk to you. So it's like, hey, and you have to it'd be another licensed, authorized water furnace dealer, but that technician needs to have a license to even work on it. So we go to really high end. So there's that bridge where not everybody's going to buy that one, even though I believe that's the best unit out there, but it's not going to fit everybody's budget. And it's not the right thing for everybody. So we take it from basic bare minimum stuff. We always like to have efficiency, but we want it to dehumidify. And we use really nice thermostats that do that. So we try to, and then we do concrete pads instead of plastic pads. Not that big of a price difference between the two, but one will last and one won't. We use a new electrical disconnect every time we put in a new unit. New electrical whip. I mean, that thing's costs $20 or $30 for electrical disconnect. But if you burn up a brand new unit, it's like, what's the point on trying to save $30? It's not that expensive, but it's all those little things when you add them up at the end and all the additional labor that it takes to do it. That's what makes the difference between doing it right. It can be done right, but there's another level of doing it. We say doing it the right way. To me, I like redundancy. We have dual overflow safety switches. We put one on a primary, and if that clogs up, it'll go to the secondary. And if that clogs up and doesn't drain outside, we have a switch on that one too. We even have some of them that alert you on the thermostat when that's a problem. So we tend to try to make it where it's real redundant, and that if I have to put in a new system for you, I'd rather you not do that for another 15 years or so. But there's no money in it for us after that either, too, because if we have a 10-year warranty on parts, that's a big markup for us. Like when we do repairs, we love doing repairs because there's a lot of markup in the parts and a lot of markup in the labor, and it's usually an emergency situation. So we just tell our customers, like, hey, at a point, you're going to need to trade. You're putting money into these units. You're paying for a new unit. We just haven't put one in yet. So sometimes they get sticker shock with how much money the new system costs, and they don't realize a payment, even if you had to finance it, it's probably less money than your electric bill and repairs would be. So it actually does pay back. One of the few things that you can do on a house that actually will pay back anything. A roof will keep you from getting damaged, but it's a cost. Paint, a cost. Driveway, foundation, that's all just money. It's like it may help a resale value a little bit, but like a car, I mean, who gets a car and says, how fast does this pay me back? Maybe a Tesla or maybe something like that, maybe an electric vehicle. They say, hey, I'm driving Uber and I don't have to pay all this extra money. But an air conditioner does pay you back. So after being in the race car business and being the best in the world, when I was 20 years old, this was like 20 years old, riding that for a while and realizing that it's not that I wasn't a hard worker. It's not that I didn't have great ideas. And it's not that we didn't turn out product that proved that we knew what we were talking about. It was just the wrong business. So while I love doing it, if you can't make money at it and you can't provide for your family and your community and contribute back to the community, and that's why I feel like the home services is such a great business to be in. It's a bunch of blue collar workers, and I mean, there's plenty of really high end, executive jobs you could have in it too and make a lot of money too. Mm-hmm. But everybody thinks of the technician. It's not all about just the technicians, but the technician's the guy that's got to get it done. If he's not, and you're at the mercy of whoever the latest technician is. So if that company does not have a good training program in place and does not care about doing a good service, I let that guy sell whatever he wants, do whatever repairs, even if they're not. We come across that a lot, that people say stuff is wrong and broken, and we already know the client, and we're like, I don't know why you didn't call us. Well, you told us you would be here in 2 hours, and these guys said they'll be here in 30 minutes. So they let some other guy show up, and I'm like, well, they will not have you fixed and up and running faster than we can, because we have all the stuff on the truck, and we actually care about, we want to fix it while we're there. And if we can't, it's a major problem. It's going to take a little bit more time. But even then, we start same day installs or next day installs. So it's not like it. But you've had something for 30 years. It's not like you didn't know it was coming or you shouldn't have budgeted for it. Or it's not like it's normally not news to everybody. Granted, they don't want to have to spend that kind of money, but that's the problem is it's like just sometimes we are supposedly loyal customers that we've had. And just because they get in a rush and they get in a panic, they go hire somebody else and they end up calling us back and they regret it, but they end up calling us back. But the other company made the money.
But the new guy coming in, they're going to try to sell a new unit, a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and I'd imagine consumers are always worried, do I really need a new unit?
Yeah.
And does that guy want to make a commission?
Yeah. And they're commission sales guys. So a lot of these technicians are pure commission based. And going back to my coaching, so this is one of the things I see these guys doing. I'm sitting there going, okay, so if we do commercial maintenance for a company, we do quarterly maintenance. So every 3 months, we're going to be out there. We're going to go do filter service, we'll change belts and we'll do that. So think about this. I'm going to be out there 4 different times in a year. So your numbers for a lot of these big PE companies and these bigger companies are every 2 to 4 calls they go on, they sell a system. So think about this. If I'm going to do maintenance for a commercial maintenance deal 4 times a year, first time out, you're going to need filters and belts and pulleys. Or you're going to need some minor stuff, let's say. Next time, they probably hadn't changed contactors and stuff, maybe control boards, other little parts. Probably been done 5 or 10 years. Okay, so maybe you're going to do some minor stuff. Come out again, maybe there's a fan motor that needs to be done, a little bit major deal. 4th time you're out there, you're basically changing filters, or the way PE does it, boom, you should buy a new unit. Okay, so think about it. So if every 4 calls I go on, I sell a new unit on 1 out of 4, because that's what the numbers are. If you look at PE and these sales guys, we were looking at a sales guy the other day, 19.8 million, because we were talking about this last year. It was 18 million with 1 company, 1 salesman, residential. He did 19.8 million last year. That makes that salesman, he's a selling technician, that makes that guy a millionaire just on commissions. And he's running. And so I had some of these big coaches were jumping in and bashing this guy. And I know the owners of the company. And they came out and said, this guy works 7 days a week. He works 12 hours a day. He runs calls. He says he does not sell as much on the weekend because there's not as much opportunity. But this guy literally sells 3 to 4 systems every day.
Wow.
And they're at $26,000 average.
Wow.
That's how he's getting to that number. Now, granted, they're following all their high opportunity calls to that guy because they know he's going to close.
He's the best closer, yeah.
Yeah, he's the best closer. But now if you got all the good leads, it's not that hard to close either. So if they only follow you the ones they know that, hey, this house has 3 units and they're 30 years old. So there's where we're trying to do a better way of I would like to do a 1-hour response time, meaning you go online, you book a job with us, I will have a technician to your house within an hour with parts on the truck to hopefully we can fix it and get you up and running. If not, we got some good options for replacements too. That's ultimately, I think, would be the best marketing that you could do. And that's what our goal is to have enough manpower to be able to handle that. And being in Dallas, I think we've got plenty of potential there, but you still have to compete with a lot of these big players. And that's the problem with even a small guy like me. So like Nexstar is one of the coaching groups. It's $40,000 to get in a Nexstar. If I had the 40 grand to plunk down, they won't let me in because I'm now going to compete with their other guys they already got in the club. They are a funnel for their PE companies. I'm not saying they don't do great training.
Right.
But they're grooming these companies to grow so that they can then merge them together and buy them out and turn them into bigger companies. And I'm not saying that's not wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's their business plan, and that's how it works. And they, like for a small company like me 10 years ago, when I started out, well, it's now 12 almost, I tried to get into Nexstar. And they basically go, nope, there's too many people already in it. You can't get in. So you reach out to try to get the training, try to do the coaching, try to come up with the money to do it. They won't even let you in the club. So when you're in a big city, like I know some guys out in, I won't even say where it is because I don't want to drop too many names, but they're out in a smaller town in East Texas and they're blowing and going, but they're like the only company out there. There's a few little mom and pop deals around, but they look like they're huge out there and they own the whole market. It's cheap to advertise. They got billboards everywhere. Their trucks everywhere. They corner the market. When you're in Dallas like this or Forney, it's insane how many guys are out there doing it. So it doesn't take but a few of those big guys too to just hoard up the market because they're just throwing so much money at it. Tommy said recently, some of these guys, they said, hey, we can afford to come in. PE can afford to come in and we can lose money for 2 years just to push people out of the market.
Just to get market share.
Just to get market share. They know that's some markets they got to do that. I mean, I know the Kellys, Josh Kelly and his dad out there at Parker and Sons in Phoenix.
Yeah.
They got 1,000 trucks out there. They're plumbing, electrical.
They're also $1 billion company.
Yeah. And they've also been around for 40 years too. So it's not like it's not like it's built overnight, but they are the largest single HVAC, plumbing, electrical company for one location.
One area.
Yeah.
That's what Josh told me.
Yeah. So it's amazing. So I looked, he's one of my coaches. Now guys have made the comment, they're like, well, Josh doesn't, his dad did that. He's not really a part of that. He's a marketing guy. I'm like, Josh is a part of that business. He knows he's got access to the same resources. These people probably have not been on their calls. They have not been on calls or one-on-ones with Josh where you start seeing he's got the power. He will get, if you needed access to something, they have the pull to get it, and he can get it for his people that are in his network. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to do that. I mean, he's more than willing. He wants to help. Mm-hmm. There are other guys in the deal that supposedly have built businesses and sold for millions. Basically, we're going bankrupt anyways. And it was just a market share deal that PE bought them out. But a lot of those guys run around bragging about how much, look at all what I did. Look, we built this huge company and it was sold it for multi-millions. Essentially, PE bought it for a customer list and to get rid of them just so they were a thorn in their side. Like, we don't want to have to deal with these guys anymore. Let's just buy them out. And they literally tanked them in like a period of like 2 or 3 months. So it's hard to compete on the smaller scale. And I think as you're trying to grow it, you can have the great ideas. You can want to do a good job, but you're fighting an uphill battle sometimes against these bigger guys. That's the reason we've got a hold of you, is you think a little bit differently. It's kind of the way I think sometimes. You go, hey, you can compete. Granted, we need to grow. You got to grow. You got to take little steps to get it to grow. But I think you come at it from a different perspective, whereas a lot of these other companies, they just take your money and run. And I've been through that for so many companies. I give them the benefit.
That's what I hear a lot.
Yeah.
They all tell me the last 3 companies burned me.
So at a point, you sit there and you're sitting there going, when's the next, like, I'm going to hire the next guy. But the track history has not been great. And you're sitting there going, well, how many people am I actually going to get burned by before I actually get results? So really, that's what our goal is, to try to turn this and bring it more in-house. And like what you've been talking about is hey, we've got these really good VAs and we've got these other ways to automate stuff. Like software that automates like texting and stuff like that. It's like, instead of making a phone call, like we looked at, now I know it's like, I know how long somebody should be on a phone call with somebody. And then it's like, okay, you should be able to handle 160, phone calls a day. Now, granted, that's not a normal day, but it's like, well, time-wise, like just an inbound somebody who's doing a CSR that's just booking a call, 2 or 3 minutes. You shouldn't spend 15, 20 minutes. You've already sold. You should have that value built into, or that brand. They should be confident once they've gone to the website, they've seen videos, they've already done some research. Yeah. When they call, you just need to book the call. We're trying to move that to more of an automated thing. But again, we're having to deal with we see how big companies do it and can afford to do it. And then we have to be able to make it work on a budget too, to be able to get it there. But we are looking for long-term growth. And I shake my head after I see all these people that came through COVID. Everybody bounced out on their own. It's like, we've been doing it for decades before that. And we've kind of seen it up and down. And you'll see these guys come up and show up, and 2 or 3 years down the line, they're gone, or even not even that fast. I mean, we've seen them come and gone within 6 months. Looks great. They come in with a big selling machine, and then they're gone. And we never hear, like these big companies around us, we hear nothing but complaints about they're so overcharging everybody. But the people will pay the money. I'm like, you paid I said, I don't get that. I'm like, and the reason being is they got in the door. People don't want to have to spend the money. They know they got screwed. They know they got overcharged. I'm like, why did you do business with them? They didn't know other options, because they dominate advertising. They dominate. You can't get in the door. Nobody knows who we are. When the guys, we just were talking about that earlier. We had a competitor of ours that basically thinks that he's doing something unique that we've been doing for years. You know, we do free repairs for customers all the time. He started a business 2 years ago, and he acts like he's the only guy in town that ever does free repairs for anybody. They advertise, oh, free repairs. And he makes a post on Facebook or Nextdoor or somewhere and says, oh yeah, one of my competitors is copying me now. I'm like, well, you've actually just started at this. We've been doing this for a couple decades pretty much. And we got to do the right thing. And it has to be a win for the customer, it has to be a win for the company, and that turns out a win for the employees. Unless we all win at it, it's not a sustainable business. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're trying to do is we're trying to expand it, but we're so picky about the people we hire. I'll go out and do it myself because I know it'll get done right. And we've been through a bunch of people. Some of this younger, it's just harder to get the work ethic like Fred had, the work ethic like I have, or those older generations. It's not derogatory. I'm not being derogatory to the young people.
It's true.
It's just not the same. It's just like their standards are a whole different deal. It's not that there's not good guys, there's still good kids, younger people that know how to work hard. But sometimes, we have to tell them sometimes, I have guys come in there, I'm like, hey, they complain about, well, I could go work at Amazon make more money, or I could go to Walmart or the grocery store or whatever, make more money than. I'm like, yeah, well, you're starting out as a helper, but you have a potential to really move up. We are raising our standards and our deals, but sometimes it's like, hey, you got to understand this is a career. This is a lifestyle. If you can stick it out, it's rough when you get started because it's kind of a shock. People, I've had guys start out for us and they're literally helping us, and they're in tears. They just don't understand how physical it is sometimes. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to be a technician or installer. Right. There's so many different positions to be had. Yeah. But it is tough, and it's if you can find the right people. But again, we're not the big guys. They're the ones pushing all the advertising. If they're just charging I think what's happening is there's a bubble that I think the price gets so high. It's like cars in the last couple of years. People just quit buying cars and houses because they didn't want to deal with the financing. They're like, no, there's no way I'm paying that kind of money in financing. The cars are double the price they were 2 years ago. And there's a bubble that I think air conditioning, some of these home improvements, it's hitting kind of a bubble where you've kind of pushed it up high enough where you probably can't do any more. And then how are you going to pay people more money working for you? Yeah. Without raising the price?
Yeah. There's a limit with the advertising and the quality of the salespeople and how much you charge and all that. But people's ACs will still break down. Yeah. And they still need someone to come out. I think ultimately reputation is what matters. People who not just say they want to do it right, but there's proof of that. And I think what you have, Richard, you have a lot of proof of that. That's just not visible online. Yep. Because I think you perhaps felt like you were faced with this false dichotomy where it's either be like these other guys and overcharge and have salespeople that try to sell a new system when it's not necessary, or charge 30 grand for a new system, or just rely upon word of mouth and be outcompeted by the big boys.
Right. And that's really where we were stuck. The word of mouth's great because we're in the door and people already have that. They have that connection.
But you felt like there was
but you can't build.
You have to behave like these guys, or you can't even exist.
Yeah,
there's sucking up all the market with all the advertising.
So there's where our dilemma is.
But I don't think it has to be that.
It doesn't have. It will never be us giving up the quality. It's just how do we get in the door with these other offers these guys are doing? So like we know we know when they put this offer out, we know it's not going to be that deal. We looked at one. I looked at one yesterday. They do online pricing. Oh, click on our site. We don't even have to come out. And so I keep pushing this online pricing. Know before you buy. So just come. Hey, so you give them their information. You get down to the bottom, and it outputs a price. It goes, $8,300 to $19,800. That was their price range for that system. So what did that really do for anybody?
Not helpful at all.
It's not helpful at all. But they got their information.
Yeah. The size of the house and all. Yeah, it's basically lead gen.
Yeah, it's a lead gen.
Yeah, pretending that you're going to offer them a quote.
Right. Free repair. Call us for a free repair. What most guys do, if you do the repair, or like free service call. So a lot of guys
Just
do
to
that.
sell you a new unit.
Yeah, because they're sending a sales guy out there on commission, and they're going to sell you a new unit. And they paid Google $700 for that lead, or $500, $300, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That
Usually
deal.
like the 110, 120 is the going price on LSA.
Yeah.
Depending on the
Yeah,
area.
or whatever. I mean, during COVID, these guys literally were going up to like $700 in here.
Yeah.
Or they do a free service call. They call it a free service call. And I see guys out there charging for service call. Then they charge diagnostics. Then they're like tacking, they got $300 and they haven't done no work. Or they'll do free service call with same day repair. One of our big guys here locally, I went because I had a customer call us because they saw us. I said, these guys just came out here. They installed our system 1.5 years ago. And this is a warranty motor for a blower on a Lennox. And he said, they want $1,800 to change out the motor under warranty. And I go, what? I go, send me that quote. I said, something doesn't sound right. People will gripe and they'll think we charge too much at $300 or $400. And I'm like, well, here's the thing is I do have to take the motor back. So it's like I'm doing the job twice. Mm-hmm. If I show up with the motor on my truck, I'm going to have the part there. I'm going to have a markup on the part. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to run to the parts house and get it.
Right.
That's where we make a lot of extra money because we don't have to waste time.
Right.
I think we came out and I sold her a maintenance, 1 year maintenance and a VIP membership. I said, I'll do this whole deal. It was like $1,200. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, man, these guys are $1,800. And she's like, boy, that sounds great. And here I'm, even to myself, I'm thinking, I go, wow, I just had to raise my price up. So PE is not necessarily a bad thing to have in your backyard because they're driving some of those prices up so high that
you can charge more too.
Yeah, it's actually, but you're going to have a guy working out of the back of his truck or doing side jobs. He figures if he makes $100 for an evening worth of work, hey, he would have had to work all day to make that.
Yeah.
So you still have those guys.
Yeah.
And I think there's a price perception that people, like now you have a lot of DIYers and they can go on YouTube and they can learn how to do it themselves. That's not really our client. I mean, you're always going to have those clients. When we came from the race car business, everybody wanted to build. So what happened is the magazines would tell you they'd build a project and everybody'd go buy the parts and they'd copy it and they'd think, well, they put this car in the dyno and it made 600 horsepower and they did it in their garage and they used all the same parts and they figured it'd make 600. They go put it on a dyno and it makes 200. So it's like, hey, I had the recipe here. I bought all the same parts, but for some reason, the expertise on putting it together and getting it to that end result, there's a difference. You don't get the same results, even though you think you're going to get them. And I think that's where I think people were going onto the internet and looking for upfront pricing. They're going, oh, I can go buy this system for $3,500. Why am I going to pay you guys $14,000 to do it? Mm-hmm. That's before they get in the attic and have a heat stroke and step through a ceiling because they're passing out or whatever, or they got to come back and do warranty a bunch of times because something wasn't done right. It's labor intensive to do it, but it's a big investment. And I just think you've had so many, and I was part of it. One of the reasons I went out of business in the race car biz, we used to build motors for people and ship them all over the world. And my machine shop that I used to pay to do the machine work on the engines, he looked at what I sold that engine for and he goes, I don't understand how you can sell, you're selling the engine put together, machined by him, because he had the machine shop. He goes, I can't buy the parts for what you sell the engine for. And he goes, I'm a shop. I says, because I buy it at the right price and I'm pushing them, I'm getting them out the door pretty quick. You're doing one-offs over here and I'm kind of got an assembly line going here. And I am buying it at a lot less money than you think you're buying wholesale. I had direct deals with certain manufacturers. I could buy it. The problem with that, though, is I was giving a product away at so cheap of a price. I still was only getting the bottom rung guys that were wanting it. If I'd have tripled the price, I'd have got probably sold as many, if not more, but I'd been in a better clientele. It'd been more in the middle. So one of the statistics that I've learned over the years is you probably got 10% of your clients are just going to get the cheapest thing they can find. You got 10% that are like me that understand value and I'm willing to pay for it because my time's valuable and I want it done right. You got 10% that are going to go straight to the top. Mm-hmm. They don't care what it is. In fact, they might even pay more just because it's more.
They just want the best.
They just want the best.
They're always first class.
They're always first class. So they're just going to go straight to the top, and that's how I typically shop. Mm-hmm. I know value, and I'm going to go, hey, I'm going to get the best value out of that most expensive deal. I'm going to do it once, and I ain't going to mess with it again. Then you got 80% of the people are in the middle. Mm-hmm. Now, some of those people are going to go to the bottom, some of them go to the middle, some of them can go to the top, but you still, those are the people that are, you can have a discussion with them and you can get financing to work for them or you can get something that fits their budget. An air conditioner is costs a fortune no matter what. Like buying a car nowadays. Yeah. Cars have got really expensive, so it actually made air conditioners look a little bit better in price.
That's a cheap car.
Yeah. You buy a cheap car nowadays, you can't buy the regular car for what air conditioners sell for now. But that's when you have that one-on-one discussion with a homeowner who actually cares about investing in the property they own. It's hard to get that across the renters, or you can't get it across the renters because it don't make any difference. Most of those people are owned by overseas companies anyways, or big real estate companies. And in the commercial, you're dealing with a property manager, you're dealing with the owners of that property, you're dealing with a tenant, you're dealing with their management team. A lot of those are owned by out-of-state companies that are proving stuff. So there's really where we changed our deal to focus on residential. But that's because of COVID, it got so competitive in the market and so many people have showed up and actually relocating to Texas. They're like, hey, we want to go to Dallas. Yeah. And they're showing up here. Yeah. It's like, hey, I didn't have to deal with, not only that half the technicians were working for other AC companies decided to start their own AC companies anyways. So it's like, yeah, it's a huge, it's a huge jump to not advertising, getting screwed by a bunch of marketing companies that didn't give us any return on investment, and figuring out where do you got to go to get that. And building a company basically trying to build a real company that's sustainable for all the employees and all the clients.
Why do you think, Richard, there's so many AC companies in Dallas?
Well, I tell you, in the winter, they go buy space heaters, they'll put blankets on, they'll start up the fireplace or the stove. In the summer, the only place probably worse than Dallas is probably like Houston. You get some of these higher humidity areas on the coast. Dallas it's a big melting. Dallas is big on new construction, or like Dallas has been growing really fast. So a lot of that has to do with new construction crews. You got a lot of construction, like a lot of the populations in the construction business. If some of these crews, they're digging a ditch over here or putting in sprinklers one day and they're putting in gas lines another day or electrical lines or cable or whatever. And sometimes these crews, they start looking at like kind of the higher end companies, like the AC guys. They start looking at the electricians. They look at kind of the higher end trades that are a little bit more professional. And they're like, wow, those guys are making better money, or they're making better money than we're making. Or they have nicer trucks and they have, they treat the people better, because it's run more like a business. And I think what's happening is, I think everybody thinks it's easy money. They think that they can just, and you have a lot of technicians. I think that's one of the big problems is just because you're and I'm a great technician. And one of my big problems is I'm too good of a technician, and I'm so honest about it. And I'm going to treat you like, this is what I'm going to sell my mom. Like, this is how I'm going to treat her. If you don't need it, I'm not saying there's not a time when you really do need it. It's not a danger to you. We were just on one the other day. It's a 30-year-old unit. There's no crack in the heat exchanger. We checked it every which way. The thing fires up. She's having intermittent problems. We're like, look, we got a blower motor that's probably overheating. You got an inducer motor that's overheating. You've got a control board that's probably going in and out. I'm like, there's like multiple things it could be, but it's working right now. And it's not a safety danger. It's not a hazard right now. She knows she needs to replace it. But I'm like, I would hate to see her do a bunch of repairs. And when you have an intermittent issue like that, that's the ones that'll get you. Because we're, as a technician, I can diagnose the problem. We can amp the motors out. We can check all the stuff. If it looks fine while we're there, and we're truly being honest about it, we're like, hey, it is within range. Mm-hmm. We don't see a problem. I can't tell you that's the problem. Now, if I actually see it, and I see it lock up on us, yeah, blower motor, $800, $900. People will go, well, I'll start throwing a fit. We'll go find one online for $120 and do it myself. And go do it. But I'm not paying my guys to do it that way, and a truck roll and everything else, and keeping all that stock on it. Just so you call me once every 20-something years in the middle of the night on a holiday weekend and want me out there. You know, option is you can put in a new unit and probably not have that problem for another 20 years.
Yeah.
So I just think people think it's easy money, and I think you have a lot of technicians that turn around and say, well, I can just do this, all I need is my truck. A lot of them are subcontract already, so what's the difference? You know, it's like they already...
Is there liability, though, if they're doing it on their own because it's not covered by the company?
Yeah, but you should see how many people that we deal with all the time. They have no insurance, no nothing. I mean, they literally convicted felons. I mean, guys with warrants. I mean, like, they're on drugs. We run into this all the time. Now
they're doing it for $100.
Yeah. Yeah. So they can do it cheap.
Yeah.
You know, if you got, and new construction, here's the thing is, think about a new construction crew. They're they're on a slab with a bunch of construction guys. There's nobody around. It's maybe a whole neighborhood of just, all it is a bunch of contractors out there. You think anybody really cares if they're blaring the music? You think if they come in hungover, drunk, stoned, whatever? Do you think they really, all they care about, they get the house built? And if they're subcontractors, you get hurt on the job, you get killed on the job, they just sweep you away somewhere. You just automatically disappear because you're not an employee of the company. And whoever hired you is trying to do something, they're trying to do something shady already probably. There's no loyalty to those guys or anything. So I don't blame those guys for deciding to go, hey, let's go start our own company. The licensing is not that hard to get. The insurance is really not that expensive until you start getting into commercial. You do some of these bigger jobs. It's not that hard. They've got the skills. The problem is once you make that transition to an owner, now you're not just working for one person or two people. You work for everyone. You work for all the bill collectors, IRS, you know, you're all the bill guys. I mean, now you got employees, and something happens. All of a sudden, that's the reason most of these companies don't get beyond 2 or 3 people. Because the minute you go above 2 or 3 people, it starts imploding. And that's not saying that there's not good small companies out there, but like the ones that I knew, because that's all I knew was all the mom and pop, because birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
So all those little mom and pop guys kind of know all the mom and pop guys. And so it's all the little guys against the big guys. There's a lot of little guys. But I think that's unfortunately, they don't understand how to price. They're not paying their employees what they should. They're not paying their taxes. We had one the other day. A friend of mine owns a big AC company that's doing really good this last few years. He's been doing it for about 10 years. He posted his net profit on the internet. He showed, here's what our overhead is, here's all this. When we get done with all this, the cost and everything, it was like 9.1%, which is typical. So if you can net out of everything 10%, you're actually doing pretty good. Most people are probably in the negatives, if not the low 1, 2, or 3%. That's after overhead and everything. He made a comment that they sold a system for $14,000. And he got one of his competitors is out of the city limits, not in Dallas proper, like in where all the code, you got all the code issues and everything. This guy's out in the country in a rural area. They don't have inspectors coming around, and actually in that county, you don't need inspections for AC work. And the guy's bashing him, saying, well, I'd be losing money if I was making 9% profit. He says, that guy, you're an idiot. And he says, we charge $8,500, because I called the guy out, and I says, I said, what kind of margins do you make? I said, what are you selling systems for? He says, I sell them for $8,500 all day long. He says, we make 65% profit. I go, you're not making 65% profit. I said, so my buddy that I know, and it's legit, the way he does his books and everything, I know it's what he's sharing is probably legit. He's netting 10% after everything. This guy says, I use subcontractors. He goes, we pay this. He actually told me, he actually listed in this deal how much he pays us. We pay $3,500 or $4,500. It's $4,500 and they sell it for $8,000. He goes, so we make it's $3,500 we pay for the equipment and we sell it for $8,000, so we make 65% profit. And I go, I said, you're confusing margin with profit. Yeah. I said, you're not clearing that. I said, you're doing it for half the money he's doing it for. You think you're making 65% profit. Mm-hmm. And he came back with, he says, well, I use subcontractors, so they got to have their own licensing and they pay all their own expenses and everything. And I pay them a flat rate to do the job. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, so either you don't take any money out of the deal, because then he came back and he goes, we do like $4 million a year. And then we net like $1 million out of that. I go, okay, so wait a minute. So just in that calculation there, you're now at 25% even if you'd go there. Mm-hmm. You're not at 65. Right. You're actually at 25, when in reality, he probably has absolutely no clue what he's actually netting. He's probably losing, at $8,500 on a system, he's losing money. Because I used to do them for that. And I used to kick myself. I was like, I might as well repair it. I said, I don't want to put in a new system. Eventually, you'll beg me to put in a new system because you'll be tired of paying for all these repairs. So when that day comes, let me know. But again, that works if the customers are loyal and you don't have 500 new guys coming out saying they do free stuff for everybody and you can buy it for next to nothing. Some of the big guys in town that charge the $25,000, $30,000 a system are running ads for $79.95 for complete air conditioner systems. Like that's furnace, coil, condenser. That's a complete system, and they're saying $79.95, like $7,995. Same guys that are coaches, same guys that are coaching people saying you should sell it for $25,000. Their own companies are undercutting, and they know they shouldn't be doing that. Now, either they're trying to coach all their competitors to go up so they can undercut them. But then again, if you then go back to Milestone, A1, Bacon, you go to these big companies around here, they're at $22,000 to $25,000 on a system. If you go the guys that did, we were talking about that, guys got one company, and I know the owners of the company, and they told me how many hours he works. They told us, shared it with a bunch of people. Top salesman in the United States selling residential air conditioners, sold $19.8 million last year in air conditioners. That's 3 to 4 systems every day at $26,000 a system to do that. He works 7 days a week. He works 12 hours a day. That's all he lives for. He wants to be top dog. I'm not saying that's bad. He makes that company a ton of money, and he makes over $1 million in commissions every year. I think that's a disproportionate amount of money that one guy's making when most of the people are doing the work, like physically in the trenches doing it. I think that's part of a deal where somebody starts going, maybe y'all are charging too much if you can pay a sales guy. And actually, he's a technician that works out of a truck. He's not actually just a comfort advisor. I will tell you this, though. He is not selling a repair if he can sell a $26,000 system. So the problem is you see that big gap between a lot of the big companies selling those big deals. Yeah. The only reason they can do that is because they can get in the door with the customer, and they got high-pressure sales guys.
But how does Grandma not get ripped off when someone's going to come in and say, you need a new system? What can she do or ask?
So I always ask, why do you say that? If Grandma's got a 30-year-old system and it's R22 refrigerant, and we're starting to have, we have a compressor failure. By the time you get done doing a compressor change out, you're at $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. It does not make any sense
to try to repair that old system. She's probably paying a lot more in electricity. She just doesn't realize it. So my question usually is, I ask them, what's your electric bill like? So I get a feel for if somebody I had somebody tell me the other day their electric bill is like $80 or $90 a month. I can't help. I'm like, I could cut it in half for you, but it ain't really going to make a big difference in your budget. And I got another customer that says, hey, I pay $1,000 a month because he had 3 air conditioners. I go, I can knock that probably less than 5. I could cut that in half easy. He was paying $450 a month after that. And they were always throwing parties and stuff at his house. So this was all year long he was running these bills. He goes, man, that's the best money I've ever spent. Or if we have a customer that's got an old system and they're on propane, we've converted them to heat pumps. We had a customer the other day, in 1 month, they said in 6 weeks, they spent over $2,000 on propane. And we got them on a heat pump. And so now we're not burning propane anymore for the house. It does for the oven, it does for the fireplace, and water heaters maybe, very minimal. They're saving a ton of money. So there's where Grandma, I go in there and we talk about it and we find out, what are your needs? Do you like it cool in here? Do you like it at 78? Now, normally if they run it warm, they're going to have humidity problems. Well, your humidity's through the roof. That's the reason you got mold on the curtains. You know, so we start finding out where the problem is. Like, you got all these allergies and it's like your health is, poor health and everything. It's the mold you got in here. And we have testers that do that, and we're not certified mold guys, so we got to be careful about talking about the M word. But we do have, we'll run tests to see if it's really mold or not, or we'll call in a real environmental guy. But we just know with the humidity around here, it's going to be a problem. So we explained to their options. I had one the other day that, we were like, hey, it's going to be $850 or $950 to do this motor. I got it on my truck. I'll have you up and running in like 2 hours. I go, but you do have I said, this is a 15-year-old, it was 20-year-old system. I go, a new system, it's probably got to set you, and I ballpark it. I'll throw out $14,000 as a kind of a ballpark. We got them going down to 8,000. We got them going to 50 grand a unit. So I kind of throw out kind of middle of the road there. So I'm like, hey, I don't want to just go down from there because I can't give them the system I really would like them to have that works good. I don't like doing a stripped down system. You might as well go to the cheap guy for that. I mean, I have them. I just don't want to compete with that guy. I'll still do them. But at a point, the guy caught me. I go, well, let me go get the motor out of the truck. I'm going to get started on it. And as I'm getting in the truck and getting the parts out of the truck, he comes out and knocks on the door. He said, hey, you know what? I just talked to my wife about this. We just rather put it in the new system. If it's on 14,000, it's like, hey, we got that. We'll just write a check for it. Can we get a cash discount? Yeah, I got cash discount and everything. I said, because then when I explained it to him, like, hey, the thing is, if you buy a new system, not saying you won't have problems with it, the likelihood of you having problems or a major repair that's not covered under warranty is going to be almost next to nothing. It's peace of mind knowing you're not going to have to call me when it's 110 degrees out or when it's 20 degrees out. Yeah. So at a point, there is a peace of mind that goes in there, and especially like a lot of folks when they're getting ready to retire, they're getting older, they don't know what job they're going to have tomorrow. Like, today is probably the best day to figure out a solution to this problem, whether it's financed or whether you have some savings set aside, because it's only going to get more expensive the longer you wait. Yeah. But you've fixed that issue that you won't have to deal with that down the line, because you don't know if you're retired, now you're not going to get approved for the credit. Your credit may be great, but you don't have any income. Yeah. And as expensive as these things are, they're getting really picky this last year or so. So those are the things. We just have that discussion with them, like, hey, yeah, we can fix it for this. Does it make sense? Depends on what the repair is. We're definitely not trying to sell them a new system if it's guys will throw a fit about this. $300 or $400 for a capacitor is trip charge, the labor to do it, having it on the truck, and the service. People will throw a fit about that. They're like, it's so cheap. Like, yeah, but I can't pay my guys to do anything and be stuck in traffic and do a good job for you and warranty it if I don't charge that much. Same guys I know are charging $1,000 to do that in other areas. Can you go buy it cheap on Amazon?
or somewhere maybe locally. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the thing is, even with them, and I know people are on budgets, and I understand that. And we just we give multiple options, but we're honest about explaining what we see.
Yeah.
And we have the good digital gauges, and we have the good meters, and we're going to write it down, and we'll see. We make notes on the side of a unit. We write it down with a Sharpie when we start them up, or we'll write on the date we checked it and everything. So we're really we're real thorough on our invoices, how we label it. And I'm like, that way you kind of know and have a history, and we kind of look at it. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have that discussion at a point. We're going to say, hey, you do understand, because they might put $500 this year, $500 next year, and they forget that they put all this money in it. Mm-hmm. And then we come back and we're like, hey, I got lifetime value, like it says, or lifetime spend, like an average. Mm-hmm. And we can pull it up and say, hey, you've spent this much. Why don't we just, quit doing this? So if it makes sense for them, we'll do it. So, and we just try to look at it as long term. And that's something with the commercial side, it's hard to do. You can't sell that value. They don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
So but residential. And that's where my big mindset change came in, was really looking at the residential. We already did a great job at it. It just wasn't our priority. It wasn't our target clientele. So that's kind of where we made that shift. And once we made that shift, we started jumping in the boat with the big guys, because they all said, we ain't doing commercial. They all bailed on that because they know what the gold mine is. Mm-hmm. And then they've all kind of muddied the water so bad. So we do free second opinions, but we get some clients, though, we get called out, and they literally got 5 people out there trying to bid something. Everybody's going to tell you something different. I have one that we did. They left electrical undone. It was 1 in 40, and it was one of the guys I've been talking about. They sent a guy out there, and they took a capacitor out of the unit and left the wires hanging there. So when you go work on a unit, one of the things is it'll have a capacitor usually, and it has a rating on it. Most of the units, you cannot look up. If you look up the manual on it or the parts list, a lot of times it doesn't tell you what capacitor it will use, because it's specific to that compressor. Sometimes they change compressors, and it may not match. So it may be somebody may have put the wrong one in or whatever. They had robbed the capacitor out of it and told the lady she had 3 systems, and they were old. The systems were old. They were 20 plus years old when I got there. She had 3 different people come out, and they all tried to sell her a new system. One of the guys took the capacitor out, left the live wires, 240 volts sitting there, and that did not even disconnect the disconnect to kill power. When I opened the door, I took the cover off, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, there's no capacitor in here, and the wires are hanging there. You're lucky it didn't start a fire or somebody didn't get electrocuted, because that door, when you take a door off, it like tilts in, or, you got to be careful. There's electrical.
Fire scares. Yeah, the wires you could touch and kill you.
Fire, and kill you. They were too lazy. Not only did they tell her it was non-repairable, they said she had to buy a new system, but they didn't even pull out the disconnect to just be safe about it. I mean, it could have burnt the house down, could have killed somebody. I was so mad, I was shaking when I got out of there, and I got her, come out and showed her what was going on. Because I work on so many of them, I kind of knew, I was able to guess at what size capacitor it was. Took one off my truck, brought it over, put it in there, hooked the stuff back up, unit fires up and starts running.
Wow.
And I go, well, here's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm not even going to charge you for this right now, because I says, maybe as this thing runs, maybe it goes for a few hours, or maybe it goes for an hour and it does something I'm not seeing, because you can get bearings that'll lock up after a while, or run for a while and something else happens. The blower motor goes out. It's like you can have multiple things happen. Fan motor lock up. I go, well, right now, actually, this is one of the better sounding units I've seen recently. And I'm like, so let's see if this, because I said, I may not have got the right capacitor. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't find the right number. So I'm like, I'm going to guess at this. I think this will be right. End of the week, I call her. Well, I checked back that same day. Still running, working great. So the end of the week, I call her. I says, hey, I'm going to figure up this bill. I said, if this is still running by the end of the week, now I'm going to bill you for doing that repair. But I says, I'm not real confident. I'm like, maybe we got something else going on, and maybe that's why they did this. They were just trying to scam her. She had that system. They ended up selling that house. I got the maintenance contract on it for another 3 or 4 years. They ended up selling the house. Same system still in the house. I've been maintaining them for that 3 or 4 years. She got rid of the other 2 companies. One of the companies went out of business. The guy got killed on a motorcycle a couple years ago and just disappeared. The whole company went under. And the other company was one of the new companies out around. She's like, I ain't ever calling those guys again. She sells a house. They build a barndominium out in Greenville, which is 45 miles away from us. From where I live in Forney, she's like, would you be interested in coming out and doing this house? I go, yeah, for a full system. And I did all the duct work, and I did 4 zones to it and a nice heat pump. And we did a really nice job out there. Probably one of the nicest jobs we've done. She loves it. So we got repeat business there, but we didn't get, she had 3 systems on the house we could have got. But somebody was trying to take advantage of her, and they did it in such a poor way. Not only taking advantage of her, but it could have actually burned her house down or killed somebody. That's the stuff, though. What's funny? It's not funny. We see that stuff almost on a daily basis. That's the stories we hear every freaking day. These guys overcharges. They sent this guy out. He didn't know what he's doing. Guy walks in the house and the AC not working. What kind of water quality you got? You got allergies? And I was like, no, I'm burning up. I'm dying of heat stroke. My AC's not working. What do you care about the water? But you call these big PE companies because they're plumbers, solar, roofing. They're looking at your shingles when they should be fixing the AC unit. Because they're
trying to sell everything.
Yeah, it's just sales thing.
Yeah.
Gas station guy just told us about his deal the other day about some big company. Remember? At the tacos.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, I forgot about that last.
I mean, that guy's just, he's like, man, they're expensive, but hey, I just don't get it. I'm like, and I'm not saying it's not expensive. I don't care if it's, hey, if I sold air conditioners for $5,000, people still think they're expensive. Because it is, that's a lot of money. Yeah. But what's really expensive is you buy the $10,000 one and you buy another $10,000 one and another $10,000, that gets real expensive. We had another customer that they keep going with a home warranty company. And that's the bottom of the rung guys because they can't get their own business. So they're dependent on home warranty just to funnel them leads. They're used to doing cheap stuff. They're doing the bare minimum. They're just trying to repair it. And he had a brand new system put in 2 years ago, and they were on their 3rd compressor that died. First compressor, I'll give it to you, that could be just a manufacturing fluke. Second one, that's an installation issue. The 3rd one that went in, they put in a new compressor, and the technician, if there's what they call a filter dryer that you're supposed to put in, and there's a muffler on a heat pump sometimes. It looks like a filter dryer, but it has nothing in it, but it's just baffles. It's literally called a muffler. They put in a filter dryer in place of a muffler, and the minute they started the new number 3 compressor, because he's going budget, trying to get it under home warranty, fires it up. In a filter dryer, there's desiccant and they're like little beads. That's pumping hot gas out of the top of the compressor, and it pulses. It shattered all the beads. It then sends all those beads and all the grit goes through the reversing valve, and it jammed the reversing valve, and it goes through the whole system. It clogs up the TXVs. It gets all in the line sets. So now some company did a hack job, and now they've trashed the whole system. And on the 3rd time. So what happens is...
You need a warranty on the warranty?
Yeah. No, and the guy's still having to pay because they're going to come up with all these excuses about why it wasn't. It's under home warranty. He already paid the home warranty company. Plus he pays deductibles. Plus they don't cover refrigerant and all this other stuff. But he's trying to be cheap. And I got his next door neighbor is a friend of mine, one of my partners that I had in business years ago. It's his brother. And we've done his air conditioner too. He's one of our biggest, best customers. And he says, you got to call this guy. You got to call Richard over at Fox. He says, because they know what they're doing. He goes, they did this for my brother, and he's done it for all our family members, have been all over. And the guy just won't do it. He's trying to go cheap. So there's your bottom 10%. You're not going to break that guy of that. He thinks he's getting a better deal. So we can't help that kind of customer. You're like, it's not our customer.
They're just nightmare customers.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of the ones that are the lowest budget, like that want it for the cheap, are some of the worst. They're going to be the pickiest.
Yeah.
And they expect you to go above and beyond.
Send them to the competitors. We don't want to take those guys.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I've done that before. I literally have given them other, like my competitors' numbers. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know what? I did that to one of the guys that are lowballing everybody. I told one of my customers, he was running a $17.95 furnace tune-up.
I've seen a lot of that. Is that some kind of scam to upsell you a new unit, or what's?
That's exactly what it is. Yep, yeah. You're catching on just like the
No, I see those ads all over.
Yeah.
I've seen so many AC ads. Yeah.
But how do you get in the door?
Yeah.
That's exactly
It's the car dealership with the $20 oil change, right?
free oil changes for life. But they're going to sell you something new every time, right? And tires.
Yeah.
I see the same thing. I watch some videos on YouTube or like different reels.
Yeah.
These guys talking about, hey, bring your car in. He goes, oh, we did your oil change, but we got this whole list of stuff.
Need a new engine and transmission and everything. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Just to get you in. Yeah. All right.
And I'm not saying that that's not part of how you got to run a profitable business. It's like you got to, if you do your job and you're a good technician, it's our job to let people know this is the actual condition of what it is. If you've got a 20 or 30-year-old system, there's a lot of stuff probably not right with it. I'm not just, but I got a problem with dreaming up stuff that's not right. Mm-hmm. These AC guys, sales guys come in and go, oh, you need another return over here. Yeah, you need more return. I'm like, you have no idea what kind of airflow this thing has. We have a $5,000 flow hood that if you really want to know, we'll stick it up there and I will tell you exactly how much air is coming out of that register. But that sales guy has never seen one of those instruments and has no idea what he's talking about. Outside of that's an upsell. And they get everybody's got too small a return probably. So that's one of the things that upsell. Oh yeah, we're going to fix this problem. We're going to put you a new system in and we're going to upgrade the return. Big woo.
He's just thinking how much commission he's going to make.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it's all a commission. Most of these companies are all, and Tommy will tell you this, these guys, they're like, do not pay them a base salary. They need to be on 100% commission. Our deal is, I want a guy to be able to make a guaranteed amount of money. He needs to have some kind of, whether or not he's good or not, I need a guy to be able to say, hey, at least I'm going to go year round. I know I can work year round for Richard, guys over there at Fox. I'm at least going to make this much take home. We do a commission like in bonuses and perks on top of that. You bring us a new employee, you get extra money every week or every month. You bring us Google reviews, you get bonuses for that. You get us, you shoot a video on something with a customer, you get even a better deal. So there's ways that somebody who really has that drive and wants to make more money, they need to be able to make the money they want to make. So we leave it to them to do that, but we don't make them starve and have to sell.
Well, you're attracting the right technicians and the right people too. Because I think there's a class of young adult where they're not trying to go for the $1 million, work 100 hours. They just want to make $70,000, $80,000 a year and have it steady, not just when it's 110 degrees out.
Yeah. And a lot of those people, they don't understand how it goes up and down sometimes. So like they make great money during the summer.
Yeah.
They don't realize you're going to be dead during the winter. That's one of the things I have learned from one of my coaches that was in Southern California, though. He's like, hey, we depend on the weather to generate calls. He's like, dude, we're in California, Southern California.
It's always nice.
It's always nice. He goes, half the people don't even have air conditioners out here. So he says, they don't run much. They don't break much. He says, how are you going to sell? Like, how do you sell it when they don't need it? Mm-hmm. He says, we have to generate our own weather. And I'm like, ding, light bulb goes off. Yeah. So there's where we get back to, how do you provide a customer value year round and do the tune-ups when you're in the slower seasons, keep the guys busy, maybe do more installs during the winter where it's not 150 degrees in the attic.
This is good. You're pure gold. You know how to talk. Most people in home services, they don't understand the business side. They don't understand there's technical components, like with the marketing, the website, and they don't understand things like differentiation. Because all the technicians, right, even if they do good work, that has to tie back to what does the customer understand? Like, okay, fast response, we can get there in an hour. Free repairs, how can we do that? So all those things lead, all that, the value positioning leads back to true differentiation in service and reviews. Or the fact that you offer free second opinions. Well, why do you get so many second opinions? Because all these other guys that are sales oriented, that don't have the experience, are just trying to get the commission. You need someone else to look at it, just like a second opinion with a doctor.
Yeah.
Before you have any procedure, of course you want to get a second opinion. So all these things I think are important. And if we can capture things that you say that we can back up, like we've had customers for 20 years, maybe mostly in the commercial space, but that certainly reflects on everything that you do, because the way people do one thing is how they do everything.
Well, too, the other thing is, like on my residential side, like a lot of my clients are actually people that I've grown up with. So they have access to all these other companies, or like in one of our little circles that I'm in, I swear, I think half the people are AC guys. Mm-hmm. Like they all have, like the father's got his own AC company, the son's got his own AC company. And I'm like, and their friend, like all the people we know work for each other. And that's like, and like half the people in this, it's like half the people in there are in the AC companies. So like they run an AC company. I'm like, great. I'm literally like everybody we know. And what's funny is they call me a lot of times because they go, these other guys, they're like, hey, we work regular hours and we go, you need to plan on this. So I get all the emergency calls because they know Richard's going to respond to it. Fox, he's got parts on the truck that he actually cares about repairing and fixing it. So he goes, we're going to call him. And what happens is then after I've had them for a customer, they start using me. That's like, I'll get the replacement eventually. Mm-hmm. So, that's a good and a bad thing. Because here's what I think a lot of guys don't figure in their business plan. If you're only planning on staying in business for 2 or 3 years, don't matter. Long-term don't matter. Sell them a new system the minute you get there. That's it, and then be out. Then you don't have to warranty it or nothing because you'll be out of business anyways. Our deal is we can stay and we'll still be with them in 10 years or 20 years. Eventually, I'm going to get the system. I used to say that, but we started seeing so many people, though, that lose that. We used to thought we had loyal customers. Mm. As long as we were doing something for them, they were loyal to us at a really good price. Mm-hmm. If you start raising your prices, now all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of those kind of go away. Or if you didn't jump through the hoop, holiday weekend at 2:00 in the morning and their thermostat wasn't working, I'm like, hey, you got 2 units, crank it up. They call some of these other guys, buy a new system, and they're already putting it in the next day. Those are ones we started losing out on because these other guys would jump through the hoops. They had more manpower. So there's part of our deal is if we can get some more manpower behind us, then we can respond faster and quicker. But some of these people I've known, I've literally known them all my life, so like 40, 50 years. So we're not just talking current, like as much as I've been in the AC business. Mm-hmm. We're going back to people I've known my whole life because I'm here in Dallas. And I've grown up with friends and family that we've had, and they will call me to do it. Funny thing about it, and this is, I hope he never sees this, but my father-in-law's brother would call me to do repairs on his house. He would call me.
That says something.
Yeah, that really says something. So my father-in-law, his brother, literally, instead of calling his brother to do his AC work, mm-hmm. he calls me because he knows his brother don't have parts on the truck. Mm-hmm. And won't show up when I'll show up. So that's one of those things that I kind of laugh at. I'm like, that's saying something. So, and again, that's these stories that we I know them in my head, mm-hmm. and we have a ton of videos of this too.
Can you give us access to all that?
I just need to
Dropbox.
Yeah, I need to put it all into something where somebody can start going through it and just and I do.
That's got to be pure gold.
It is.
Especially when
I got customers telling
the AC guys are calling you, just like when these marketing agencies screw things up, they have us come in and fix their stuff, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. I have that. Who's done that before? I'm trying to think. I have a couple guys. They actually work. I was telling you, the one that was calling me the other day, remember his wife and him? I think he's got Alzheimer's and he keeps repeating stuff. Mm-hmm. So he calls me multiple times on the same problem. His son-in-law is an AC guy. His only daughter, he's got one daughter, and his son-in-law is an AC guy. And he's like, he's not a good technician. So he's like, he comes over and tries to do stuff. And the guy's like, and he calls me over.
He goes, we go, hey, this is this and this, and then we fix it all. I said, man, I don't understand how this guy, like, he's my son-in-law. He goes, he does this full time. He's been doing it for like 2 years. I'm like, yeah, but just because you've been doing it for a long time doesn't make you good at it. And I'm like, and I'm not trying to throw other people under the bus. That's not the way. But the only way I can explain to my customers, my clients, what the difference between how we do stuff and how we see other people doing it is, I have to relay the story. It just happens to be, it's my competitor. It's like everybody's a competitor. I'm not trying to necessarily put those people down. That's not the point. Or a young technician that doesn't know what he's doing or whatever. Or a guy that don't have work ethic that maybe I have or maybe that Fred has. That's not the point of it. But there is a difference why you hire somebody like that compared to somebody else. We're going to get the job done, and I expect my guys to do it just like I'm going to do it. And most of our installations, even though I was 80% commercial for quite a while, our residential stuff is like unreal what we do. And we still do quite a few residential too, but it's just, you see, that's where you really get, commercials kind of real straightforward on most of the stuff. There's not a lot of it's basically you take out a box and you put in a new box, like rooftop units or something. The wiring's already there. Usually, it's like you're not going to crazy multi-stage thermostats. You're not doing zoning. You're not doing a lot of stuff that you can do on a residential system. So you can put technicians or an install crew on something like that, or 1 or 2 guys, and they can handle it fine. It's disconnecting a bunch of stuff, putting it back together. Having said that, we've had our crane guy that we've used. We've had 2 or 3 companies we've used for decades. One of them goes, and actually we had one die and go out of business. One of them, he had a crane tump over one time. One of his employees was running a crane and he tumped it over, ended up losing their insurance, everything, and went out of business. It was not this guy that we normally hire. It was one of his employees. We had another company that the guy had a heart attack and died. And basically he was the only guy running the crane, and the company basically went away. But we've had companies that we've had for decades that do a good job for us, and they'll come in our jobs, and it'll be me and another guy. And we got our salvage guy that's taking the old unit. We got our own trailers and trucks. We're pulling the unit on the roof. We're taking the other one off. And it goes so smooth. And these guys are like, man, he goes, you guys got this down. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is like the normal thing for us. And then we go driving out. There was one day there was another crane working on another building, like right across the parking lot from us. They got 3 trucks sitting there. They got all these guys standing. We see them on the roof. There must have been 6 guys over there trying to change out one unit. And they must have been there 3 times as long as we were doing a unit, and me and a helper. And I'm sitting there going, the efficiency, and like, hey, you can't tell me. It's either you're very inefficient and that's why you have to charge that kind of money, or you're losing money because you're spending way too much time and you got too many guys on a crew doing it. So there's kind of where there's where that balance point's coming into, is some of these consultants that I hire are really good about efficiency and knowing the numbers. And they're going, hey, some of these consultants say, hey, you want a new boat? You just raise your prices, buy your new boat. You want a new house, new car, you want to drive a Ferrari? You just figure that into your prices, just raise them. Because that's you. Only you know what you need to be making. And I look at it, I go, that's just, you can't do that. I'm like, you just can't do that. You should know what your numbers are, and it should be, there's a going rate for the market. Maybe it's not 28,000 and sure not 8,000, but I mean a reasonable, and reasonable, I guess, is a relevant term too. So we do $4,000 cash discount off of stuff. So we may have a system that starts at 20 grand, and I say 14, I'm giving a cash discount. I gave you $2,000 to buy your old unit from you. I gave you another bonus or something in there too. Maybe you get $2,000 off from the government. We do not advertise our selling price. So any incentives on the other end, I'm like, hey, you can get this here, but that's not that we're not pulling it up. Some of these companies, what they'll do is they put that right into the price.
Yeah.
And then when they give you the bill, then you got to pay them the extra, and it's misleading.
Yeah.
So we always make sure we break that out separate. So I might start at a $20,000 deal and say, hey, I'm going to give you $4,000 discount for this. I'm going to give you a $2,000 buyback on your unit because I got guys trying to sell that as a deal to get in the door. I'll give you that. And we have some. We have some for training units where we donate it to somebody. Like we have people, they flat out can't afford to do something like, hey, we got a decent unit from somebody. Usually when we replace it though, it needs to be.
Who wants that?
Yeah, we replace it, it really needs to be replaced. We see these guys rolling down the street in trucks that look like a brand new unit in the back. Guys selling brand new units 2 or 3 years old. So they're taking advantage of people. So our price might get down to that $14,000, but it's like, hey, if you're going to pay cash for it, I don't have to pay financing fees. So I'm going to pass that on to my customer. So we try to, and not everybody's the same. And I have some people that they just swore they weren't going to finance it because it was too much interest. I'm like, I don't control the interest. You know, I don't control how you get approved. I'm like, that's the finance company. It's third-party stuff. They're like, no, there's no way we're doing this because during COVID, everybody was spoiled with all the low interest rates.
Yep.
Free money everywhere. Now the interest rates go up, and now they're like, wait a minute. Or you know how much if you get a 60 months no interest deal from any of the AC guys, Synchrony, Wells Fargo, Service Finance, if you get a 60 months no interest, the dealer fee from me is about 30%. So that means at 20 grand, they get 6 grand out of the deal.
Wow.
Yeah. So how do you figure that into a price? Now, if somebody's selling it for $26,000, but they're doing no interest for 5 years or whatever, they had to pay the 6 grand as a dealer fee. They're not selling it for $14,000. They got to sell it for 26. So again, some of these pricing, you don't know if there's ductwork involved in that. You don't know if they do water heaters involved in it. You know, it's always hard to tell what guys are charging for stuff.
Is that normal, this 30% dealer fee?
Oh, yeah.
This no interest thing?
Yes.
But how many consumers know that that's passed on to
They don't understand that, and I explain it to them all the time.
That's why you can offer 4K cash discount.
Exactly. So I can, and I never do I always tell her, I says, look, because that's what they'll do is they'll come to me and says, well, you said 14 grand for a system. But these guys over here, they got no interest. I can finance it to them, no interest for 5 years. No interest for 5 years. I go, yeah, I can do that same deal. It's now $18,000 or $20,000 though. Their deal was $26,000, but they can afford to do it at that probably. So they're pulling some of that out. And a lot of times it's not even as good of equipment as we have in our $14,000 setup. I usually do my $14,000 is usually a 17 SEER setup that's 2 stages. It's a true variable speed furnace or air handler inside. It has highs and lows and it has active dehumidification on it. We went to a simpler deal because we don't have all this communicating stuff. We don't have these $800 control boards that are actually talking back and forth to each other that fail all the time. We did that for years. And we started just seeing so many failures. We said, you know what? We're going to go back to simple. Our stuff has capacitors and contactors in it. And we tell it to turn it on, turn it off. High stage, low stage. Dehumidifier or not. We use a simple thermostat that's really nice. But like Ecobee thermostat, we can do everything through that. 2 years down the line, they may have the latest, greatest something out that you want. We just swap the thermostat out. You're not buying a new system to get the new feature. And the high-tech system you bought today in 6 months is now antiquated because the electronics are electronics change so fast. So now you're stuck with that for 15 years. So that's kind of the way we think of it. We try to keep it simple. That's kind of our starter system is that 2-stage 17 SEER. You can go down to a 15 SEER single. It's not half the money though. And it's like what we do is we buy volume in those higher end systems. We basically pay what most people pay for that lower system. So essentially, I'm giving you the higher end deal. And a lot of these companies, these customers will tell you, well, this company did this, and they told me this, and they got this, and I got all this great stuff. And we show up. I've gone on systems before, the 2-stage systems, 20 years into the deal, every one of the compressors have died. I had a house that had 4 systems on. Every one of their compressors died because they had the system wired. They had a 2-stage system. They paid extra for when they built the house. The outdoor unit was running on high stage, and the indoor units running on low stage, which will mean is you don't have enough airflow to match your high stage outside. What it does is it floods back refrigerant to the compressor, and it tears up the compressors. And so they, out of all 4 systems they had bought, in the 20-year life, or 10 years, this was 10 years, because there was 10-year warranty on all the compressors. They had a failure on every one of them. When I got there, it was the last one that failed, and it was out of warranty by like 3 months. The technicians, when they installed it, there's a switch on the back of the thermostats they use. It literally says 1 stage or 2 stage. All they had to do is switch the switch on the back of the thermostat. The wires were hooked up right, both sides, but the guy who hooked up the thermostat and all the technicians that have been there trying to fix all the problems all along never figured it out.
They didn't flip the switch.
They literally did not flip the switch. And the guy has to pay for the labor. So Carrier warranted the compressor, manufacturer warranties compressor. But the reason it took out the compressor is because the guy didn't flip the switch on the deal. And it would cause it to ice up the coils. He had coil failures. He had leaks. So this customer has another company come out to quote him because it's right up the street from him. It's another big company here. $128,000 for 4 systems. He about gave his wife a heart attack and him a heart attack. So he calls me out there and wants me to look at him. And I go, well, you know this is what's going on. I said, like this and this and this. I go, well, like I'm not real good at math, but I keep saying 14,000. I'm not saying 56,000 ain't a lot of money, but even at our price and not even working a deal because they're doing multiple systems, 56,000 though beats 120. It was 108,000. Sorry, I'm inflating that one. I think it was 108. We could do it for almost literally half price, and he would add a better system. So they didn't do it, and they keep putting it off and putting it off, and I keep getting calls for all the emergency stuff, and we show up there the other day, 4 new systems put in by another company.
They should have talked to you.
Didn't call me.
They're a really good sales guy on the other side.
Yep.
And they paid 108 or whatever.
No, they didn't pay. I'm pretty sure they didn't pay that, but yeah. So again, they'd already told me they weren't going to pay that, and those guys weren't going to be back. But what did they do? They got suckered into somewhere. I've been working on their systems for almost a decade now, I think.
Well, these other companies have really good sales guys. They're probably watching Chris Voss's negotiating techniques and sales. And
yeah. So, I mean, they either high pressure them into doing something.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that we've looked at too, is some of these sales guys they'd go, hey, you want to be the first one or you want to be the last one in the door? I used to think I wanted to be the last because I was like, hey, I can wheel and deal and I can get you the best price and I can see what the other guys want to do. No, you want to be the first one in the door.
The first guy is often the last guy.
Should be the last guy too, if you're good. Because I heard a sales guy tell a story. He was into plumbing or something. He had to buy an AC unit. The sales guy is sitting there. He goes, him and his wife had this discussion. He says, I don't care what kind of deal these guys got. I know how this deal works. I'm in the business. I'm in the contracting business. I know how these sales guys work. But we're going to shop. We're going to check this price, this price, this price. We want to see what these 4 different companies are going to do. And we're in agreement. We're not buying anything today. Like we've agreed before anybody shows up, we're not buying. We're going to talk about this no matter what. This first guy comes out. He starts going through all the stuff. He goes, man, we got, no limit guarantee. We got this kind of reputation. We got the financing. We're going to do this. We're going to fix this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. Here's the heat load calculations we need. This is the kind of system we got. This is all the controls we got. You can do it on your phone. You can do all this stuff and everything. He gets to the end of the presentation, and the husband looks at his wife. They look at each other. They go, well, it looks like he can handle everything that we want. Any concerns we got, he's answered our questions. The price looks reasonable, I guess. It's affordable. It looks like it's going to pay for itself. We're going to have warranty on it and everything. And these look like these guys are professional stand-up guys. He goes, let's just do it with them.
They forgot their agreement coming in.
Yeah, and they literally signed it. And that was another light bulb moment for me. that went off in my head. I go, it's part of my deal. It's my fault if we can't close a deal. We need to have a better way of going about it. But we got to have the right offers and advertising and marketing so that we have that opportunity to get in that door. And we need to have the real evidence to back up what we say. When people see that, and that's what I've always been on, trying to get development on our website and the marketing. What advertising or marketing agency won't give you the best looking brochure to tell them that you're the best out there, right? Whether it's true or not, their whole job is to make it look good. It could be terrible.
That's the point of sales and marketing.
That's the whole point. So what company is not going to try to put it out there the best? One of these companies is local to Forney, and one of their selling points is, because I've always tried to do this, I'm like, hey, when I come out and do a job, you're getting me, my team, and their employees of my company. We don't sub-work out. Every once in a while we do, just to test out, to see if we can maybe we get a new crew, or maybe we can get some guys interested and they see how we do it and they're like, hey, let's jump ship, come work for these guys. Sometimes we'll do that. But their whole big selling deal is, oh, it's all our employees. It's not, we don't use subcontractors. I go walking in a parts house one day, I'm looking at the bulletin board, here's their big name up there, now hiring commercial installers, residential installers, residential technicians, all subcontractors. And that's what it said, literally like big bold print, now hiring subcontractors to do, and they had a list of everything. Oh my God, I just came off of a call. Customer says, well, that's what they do. It's all their employees.